You may be discussing it around your dinner table or in your workplace or with friends. It's a complex topic that's being brought to the forefront here in southern New England and all across the nation: racism. I spoke with a local therapist and local parents about how they are having hard conversations with their children and how they recommend having the tough discussions with your children. Evelyn Bucico is a licensed clinical social worker at United Paths in Pawtucket. Given what's going on in our world right now, she says a number of people have come to her recently about this topic. She says having the conversation about race and racism, whether you are white or black, should start early. Bucico says babies even notice color differences. But instead of talking to them as parents, you have to show them.
Race, like I said, is the first thing that you see when you see people. So saying that you do not see race is you're literally saying that you don't see people for who they are. So like a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, even babies who grow up in a house, they see the faces that they see on a regular basis. They notice that people are different. They notice differences. And I think that it's never too early to start talking about differences and embracing differences. Having toys, whether you're white or black, in your house that have positive representation of other ethnic groups is important to diversify who they're around and who they get to be exposed to. Having books also is important.
I make a concerted effort in my house to have books that address this on different age levels, even for young children.
Corey Howland says he agrees with Bucico. As an East Providence parent of 6 children, many of whom are black or biracial, he says early exposure to different races is huge.
I think one of the mistakes people make is not starting the conversation early in a children's life. I think they're surprised at how young children recognize the difference in skin color, and how by the ages of 4 and 5, children start to develop their own racial biases, no matter what home they come from or how diverse the home is. And so I think an honest and open conversation that really addresses what goes on in our world is very important.
Once kids get to around 6 to 10 years old, she says it's still beneficial to have toys and books with characters of all races, but you can actually start having conversations, especially because at this age, other kids may be already talking about race and racism with your child instead of them learning about it from you.
I remember with my older son, who's dark-skinned, Jamaican, and he came home in 3rd grade, and a girl in the class kept, every time they did the Pledge of Allegiance, would tell him that, black skin's not good enough, and that somehow he wasn't able to participate in the pledge because he was black, and used the N-word with him. And he came home and he was so hurt.
Bucico says to listen to children first and see what they have to say. She also says if your child now brings up color, Bucico says to first acknowledge that it's okay to see color and the beauty of our differences.
If your kids mention it, it's not a bad thing. Don't scold them. Oh, we don't talk about skin color. No, it's okay. They're brown. And isn't that so cool? Like, we come in all different shades and different colors, and look how cool their hair is. Like, if they mention now their hair is different than theirs. Yeah, theirs is curly and yours is straight, or yours gets curly too when you wet it, or just like making it a normal conversation and not something that's like, ooh, like you get all tense and like nervous about. So I feel like before you think you're ready as a white parent to talk to your kids about race, you should check yourself on how you feel about race and any unconscious bias you have towards race, because a lot of the kids are just innocent questions, and the way that they act is a reflection of what they're growing around and their environment that they're around. So if you're making it a tense, weird conversation, they're going to get tense and weird.
As for older kids and teens, she says to ask them what they already know and answer whatever questions they may have. She says more than likely they have seen things on social media, even if they haven't come to you about it yet.
Ask them what they know. Like, what do you think is going on right now? Like, do you hear the news? And then see what they say, and then answer their questions as appropriately as you can and as honestly as you can.
And says while racism is not something you have to bring up every day unless you want to, it's not just one conversation that you have, it's multiple.
Being someone who is anti-racist isn't something that you do one time. It's something that needs to be done as a form of living. Once you make the decision that I'm going to be anti-racist, especially in America, it's a daily thing, like that daily routine that you take for mindfulness, that daily routine that you do for yoga, going to the gym, and everything. It needs to be incorporated. You move, how you like see things, and it's also educating yourself. And I think one of the books I mentioned was How to Be Anti-Racist, and also White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo.
And if you are the parent of a Black or mixed child, you will have to speak to them differently about what is going on. She says first emphasizing how much you care and love them, since they may not always feel that from the outside world, but then delivering age-appropriate information.
As a Black mom of like 6 kids, I would say when you're like, when they're a baby, when you're giving them a bath and just saying how beautiful they are, and just like reinforcing how their skin is just literally making their mind, like the connections in their brain that there's nothing wrong with them. So if you're like giving your baby, toddler, infant a bath and just saying, oh, look at all these curly curls.
Holland says he does the same, constantly showing his children positive images and information about Black culture.
What I tried to do to counter that was to surround him with positive influences of Black people, not just history or what they might learn in school, but in our real world of today. And one of the things we did that's still one of our best memories, and it was around this same time that this girl at school was doing this to him, we worked on President Obama's first campaign for president together. And when he actually got to meet President Obama at a rally and got a big hug from him and everything, those are the type of experiences that I tried to provide to build him up to realize that even as a Black man, no matter what people are telling you, you can do anything, you are worthy, you are good.
I also spoke to a local mom of 2 Black children, Elizabeth DeRosa, who says in trying to speak to her 13-year-old and her 9-year-old about racism, it's about trying to balance her fear with having an open dialogue.
One day, someone's not going to see the content of my child's character, that my child didn't see race when he was trying to do something nice for someone else. You know, when he was trying to, when he had compassion for someone, they're not going to see that. They're going to see what my child looks like, and that be enough for them to be hated.
She says as a Black person, having these conversations about racism with your children is different and can feel like the difference between life and death.
Who wants to have a conversation with their child about, racism in the U.S. when they go to school and they're told all men are created equal? And that's not the case. It's exhausting to think that, I have conversations with my kids or driving, and I'm like, keep your hands up, comply, do not resist. If any of these things ever happen to you, he still looks at the world, as cake, as sweet, as wonderful. He doesn't see the world the way that we see the world. And do we want to rob our children from that? Do we want to introduce them to a world that's not so kind?
Holland says he battles with the same issue, wanting his children to know reality versus keeping their innocence.
I remember when my Black sons got driver's licenses, all parents have this safety talk, drive safe, don't drink or do drugs while you're driving and all this good stuff. I had to take it a step further because I knew behind the wheel he was going to be treated differently for being Black. And he was, and it was dramatic. And I remember one incident, he was parked outside in a well-to-do neighborhood, outside of his friend's house waiting for the friend to come home. So he was in his car alone, and the police surrounded his vehicle and made him get out of the car and all this stuff. And then they called me, because the car's registered in my name, saying, is this your car? Does he have permission to be using it? I'm thinking, what? He's sitting outside of his friend's house, minding his business. He has nothing on him illegal. He wasn't doing anything. He was Black in the wrong neighborhood, sitting in a parked car.
DeRosa and Holland say their advice for parents of non-Black children: you are your child's biggest example. Even if they may not talk about it with you, DeRosa says the way you act toward other races will be the way your child acts.
Being that light for your own children, being the difference for your children, because they see that and they will follow suit.
I think it's real easy when it doesn't directly impact you to kind of pretend like it's not happening, or not want to address it because it is a difficult topic to have with your children or even your family and friends. But we have to, because that's part of the solution. I mean, it's painful and it makes people uncomfortable. We got to get uncomfortable.